This is Blake Temez with the Blake Temez podcast, where I speak as a Catholic layman to Catholic laymen about missional living, wisdom cultivation, and legacy building in service of Christ and his bride, the Church. Thanks for being here. When did you first enter the Manosphere? That's a question I'm asking myself after listening to a testimony from a couple of guys who were describing how they came across so-called red pill content, or more generally speaking, the very online phenomena of the Manosphere, in which men's rights and topics like content from pickup artists and various online influencers, including Jordan Peterson, Andrew Tate in a very different way, and things in that realm. There's more to say about what the Manosphere is, and it's kind of a complex phenomena in a way, although very straightforward in others. And without diving into an overview of every character and plot point related to the Manosphere, I'm just reflecting on how did I first encounter its content. And I've had a hard time pinpointing one moment exactly, because a lot of it has been the result of meandering through research related to men's issues, specifically as they relate to the church and ministry. And so I'm sure just through clicking here and there and the YouTube algorithm doing its thing, there's been content from that corner of the internet coming my way for some time. But the YouTube channel that I think of first when I think to myself, yes, this is content in the realm of the Manosphere, is the content from a creator called HoMath, HOE_MATH. This is a young man whose face is never shown on the screen, and he does voiceovers of doodles that he's done related to the dating scene and men's difficulties in various areas related to dealing with women, dating women, understanding women, that type of thing. Very interesting stuff. It's definitely a good representation of a person who I've encountered on the internet who says a good deal of true things, a number of other things that I can't agree with, but is nonetheless fascinating because of the audience that he draws from the young men who watch his channel. And that's the most clear encounter in my mind of when I first encountered the Manosphere, is coming across his content through Paul Vanderklay's channel. And I think it is representative of a lot of what the Manosphere involves and how it's developed, in that it's come about because of angst or dissatisfaction or a kind of resentment that men can develop towards women because of relationship issues and again, just general dissatisfaction in those interactions. And so why spend any time in the Manosphere at all? That's a question that you, as someone who is a young man, Christian or otherwise, or who wants to mentor young men, or who serves them as a minister or as a missionary. And the answer is because it pays to gain some insight into why the influencers in this realm are gaining a hearing from young men when oftentimes the church is not. That they're consuming content from these influencers and gradually fading away, or outright rejecting the message and the content, to use a parallel term, that the church is offering. I've come across the concept of a null curriculum. A null curriculum being that set of things that a school or an educational group like a church can create by simply not talking about something. In other words, if you never talk about like dating or what it's like to be a young man in today's world, or things related to sexuality, or things related to difficult dynamics growing up with one's parents, all sorts of things, you end up creating a null curriculum that teaches the members of your audience, the members of your class, that you or the group you represent doesn't have anything to say about those matters. And that can be a real tragedy in the church, because even young people who want to be actively engaged as Christians can be ill-equipped once they're, out in a new environment, whether that's in college or in the work world, post-high school, and have no sense of how a Christian worldview is meant to speak into the things that are most relevant to them because of their new stage of life. And so, relating this back to the Manosphere again, while it's certainly the case that many Christian ministers, missionaries, or mentors would have plenty of criticisms, plenty of reasons to write off what influencers on YouTube or Reddit or 4chan or wherever it might be have to say to young men, because their message is, how might it be labeled? You might label their content as misogynistic or non-biblical or just plain sinful, right? Because it can be in many cases. And then not take any time to kind of discern, okay, yes, that's all true, but something is getting through to these young men that they're not finding in church. And so that's an opportunity for us, again, speaking as, a young Christian man yourself or someone who wants to reach out to them, to enter into those spaces as a researcher or as a student, right, with an open mind, not to affirm falsehood, right, but to glean truths and use interactions in those space to be a cultural missionary, right? Like when missionaries of old would enter into a new territory and they created space for themselves to learn more about the people and their language and the large-scale desires and worldview that shapes the culture, in order to be more effective in their outreach to that community. And so that's my encouragement to you. Of course, it's not something that you have to dive into so that it's consuming a bunch of your time, but just picking something, some influencer that you know is big, a book that's become popular in Manosphere spaces, and do some cultural research and allow that to inform your ministry, not such that it overwhelms the gospel, but can shed some light on how a reframing of the message of your conversations can maybe touch something in the hearts of young men that they're obviously looking for, because they find it in places besides the church. And so that was a little bit about my interactions with the Manosphere through YouTube. Maybe that Home Math channel is a starting place for you. But yeah, be courageous, be a bit bold, talk to young men actually about who they're listening to and who they find most compelling, and make that a project or a starting place in building out your mission to the young men in your life, or as a young man yourself, in relating better to your peers and understanding where they're coming from if they are far from the church or far from a relationship with Jesus. So, as always, thank you for your time and attention, and God bless you in all your efforts. Peace.